Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. Today's video is part 2 in a little mini-series I'm doing discussing the science fiction and fantasy series I am focusing on reading now and would like to finish in the near future. And part 2, this video, where I discuss series that I'm really intrigued by and will be starting as I finish my current series. Let's start with science fiction again, and all of these are completed, which is definitely a bonus. If I really want to binge something, I can. The first is the Protectorate series by Megan O'Keefe. This primarily follows a starfighter pilot who gets shot down in a battle, and when she wakes up, she is on an enemy AI spaceship 200 years in the future. Her home planet and her enemy that she was fighting, and the space gate that they were fighting over, have been destroyed. This is about intergalactic politics, a little bit of some time hopping as we go from the present story with the starfighter pilot and look to the past with her diplomat brother as the crisis is unfolding, but then also has an AI spaceship, which I love. Next is the Graven series by ESSA HANSEN, which starts with NOPHEK gloss. Again, a really cool looking spacecraft on the cover. It follows a young boy named Caden who manages to escape when the slavers who owned his family killed his family and everyone he knows. Accidentally rescued by an unlikely crew on an unlikely ship, and then decides he wants revenge for what was done to his family. And to do that, he needs to infiltrate that slaver corporation from the inside. I don't normally go for revenge stories because I don't just like reading about pure rage, but I think the setting, the characters, and some of the technology in this trilogy sounds really interesting. And also, I believe that Caden ages throughout the trilogy, so we're not just following a child, which I think is a plus. Next is the Vorkosigan Saga by MEMASTER BUJOLD. I have read the first 2 books, Shards of Honor and Barrayar, and now I'm at the point where we are embarking on young Miles's adventures, and the series, I believe, primarily follows Miles. He is the son of a very prominent political figure on one of the home planets who fails out of the military academy, which was his expected future, and becomes an accidental mercenary. Louis McMaster Buljo's writing is very witty, it's funny. I loved Cordelia, who is Miles's mother. Cordelia is the character that we follow in the first 2 novels. So I'm hoping that I also love Miles as much as I continue his story. Next is one that I've been really intimidated to start, which is the Culture series by ENM Banks. It is a well-lauded, well-loved, and very long space opera. I've been told that you can read the novels really in any order and that the player of games is excellent. However, I've been encouraged to start with Consider Flavis, the first book, just to lay a really solid contextual foundation for this universe. But what do you think? And last for science fiction is The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. It's an alternate history story where an asteroid slams into the eastern seaboard of the United States in the 1950s and launches our race to the moon early. And an interesting twist to this is that women not only are the calculators of the time, but they are actually considered valid candidates to become astronauts to go to the moon. And then in book 2, the sights have turned towards Mars. So I really like that historical twist to it. On to fantasy. I recently mentioned the Temeraire series by Naomi Novik. It is 9 books long, but each book is rather short, so I'm hoping that this one won't take me years and years to read. It is set in the era of the Napoleon Wars, but the armies of the time also have dragons, which lends itself to sort of an air force, I'm led to believe. It sounds really cool. I love the concept of that, and I've also heard the dragons are adorable. Next is The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. This is something a bit meatier. that I have been hearing lots of people on BookTube talk about lately, which really made me intrigued. It's an alternate Chinese history where the Chinese emperor dies and all these different factions are vying for the throne. I've been told that book 1 is a little bit more historical feeling. It's kind of setting up the board. And then book 2 is where you really fall in love with the characters who start making an impact to the story. Also, the new editions of the covers are just lovely. And I think the final book in that series just came out last month, so it is now complete as well. Next is one that you recommended to me that I had heard about before but kind of forgotten about, which is a shame because it sounds so cool. It's the Warbreaker Saga by Cameron Hurley. Cameron Hurley wrote The Light Brigade, which is a science fiction novel I talk about in my top military sci-fi novels. But the Warbreaker Saga is fantasy with definitely, I think, a science fiction twist to it. It's about 5 unlikely heroes who are thrust together to stop this horrible reoccurring event when multiple versions of their worlds and themselves start to annihilate each other. Sounds like a really cool concept. I love the idea of these characters facing off against their alternate selves. Normally, I don't love mirror universe type storylines. They frustrate me. It feels a little bit like Groundhog Day to me. But since these mirror or alternate universes are going to be coming together and eliminating one another, I think that puts a more interesting slant onto it. Next, Malazan, Book of the Fallen. The first book is Gardens of the Moon, another well-loved and very long fantasy series where the author just thrusts you into the middle of the story with no context and you have to figure it out as you go. I think that's what has stopped me from starting this series is I didn't have like the mental space or fortitude to want to really have to figure out the story. But my husband recently finished this on audiobook and really enjoyed it, and it motivated me to go ahead and pick this one up. I feel like as a fan of fantasy, even though I don't tend to read grimdark, but I feel like as a fantasy fan, this is one that I really need to give a shot. Last, on the cozier side of things, The Memoirs of Lady Trent. I'm on book 3. It follows Lady Trent, who is a naturalist in Victorian England inspired setting. She travels around the world looking for different types of dragons so that she can learn more about them and catalog them, but also winds up falling into other types of trouble, sometimes political in nature, along the way. So I'm halfway through this series and I do intend to finish it. Those are the series that are kind of vying for my attention that I want to start reading as I finish the series that I'm currently more embroiled in and closer to finishing. Please let me know if I forgot one that you love, that you really think I should read, or if any of these I need to bump up higher on the TBR and really start first. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And as always, please don't forget to support your local library. Thanks. Bye.